Okay, everybody, I am so excited today because I am joined by Lesley-Ann Brandt herself, aka Maze from Lucifer. How you doing today, Lesley-Ann?
I am great. Thank you very much.
Oh yeah, so I was so excited to talk to you. Having that Lucifer 5B is out today. Can you just getting us prepared for this as Lucifer fans, kind of get us into where Maze's head is currently at, where how she's able to really make this big choice of now like siding with Michael?
Well, I think a lot of that comes from just her, you know, feeling like she is tired of her being taken advantage of, or her that relationship. I would say those two. He kept a very big secret from her, one that obviously carries a very deep and painful wound, and so she reacts the way Maze does, which is from a place of hurt. And that old saying of hurt people is true, I think, for both of them.
So speaking of hurt people and stuff that's hurt Maze, I love how we got more into her character and about her mom abandonment issues. Do you think this trauma, where Maze is at now, do you think it still dictates a lot of her day-to-day decisions, or is it something she's starting to like heal from and accept it in a way?
I think that the remnants of that wound is even unbeknownst to her, has sort of dictated a large part of how she kind of relates to people. I think being abandoned as a child puts her walls up really high, and so she comes into this series not really trusting humans, thinking that sort of human emotions like love and kindness is all kind of bullshit, because that's her experience, right? And I would dare to say her first experience of like true love um, is probably in a sort of weird way with Lucifer in terms of that friendship, but then she really starts to find it with this family she creates here on Earth, and realizing that imperfection can be beautiful as well, because she is certainly an imperfect character, as are her human friends. They do things to piss her off, as is her friend Lucifer, who does things to piss her off, but like working through struggle is as uncomfortable as it feels. If you really, really want that person in your life, that's something you have to do.
Yeah, and that's such a great scope into Maze's character you just gave us. And now I'm wondering how much of Lesley-Ann do you find in the character of Maze that you can relate to?
Oh my gosh, so much. I mean, when people go, uh, who is the person that's most like the character? It's typically 9 times out of 10, it's me. Um,
I love that.
yeah, I mean, I would say, um, I would say it's probably the character I most like that I've played, in the sense that, she is an immigrant from hell. I'm an immigrant from South Africa via New Zealand. She, you know, comes from a completely different culture and understanding of how things work. So do I. She struggles to, figure out her new home. So did I when I moved to New Zealand and then, to America. She is very loyal and protective of the people she cares about. That is me. She is outspoken. That is me. She uh but and like her, actually, sometimes that strength is taken for granted. People think that there is no center core that is mushy and kind of feels what we feel. So that is where we are very similar. I think I've learned a lot from her as Lesley-Ann, that it's okay to pick the fights you want to fight. You don't have to fight for everyone, because not everyone is deserving. Um, and it's okay to sometimes take pause, and take a step back and figure out where you want to direct your energy to. and again, if that situation is worthy, because I do feel like sometimes Lucifer has to fall on his face, and May should let him.
Yeah, yeah.
He might learn something,
I like that.
yeah.
But you
We were
mentioned fighting, and I wonder, you have this great video you just shared with you're fighting these 10 guys in this sequence that we're going to see. How difficult is this? The hardest part of this role is learning these intense fight sequences?
No, that's the least hardest part of the role. I think the hardest part of the role is walking this fine balance of exploring her humanity and all these relationships, but we must never forget that she's a demon. So there always has to be an element of danger. And it's a fine balance, because you can either play her just one note as being a badass, or you can, every single scene, it's sort of, tears and crying, but that has to come from a real place of truth. So it's finding the balance with that. But the physical stuff, I love it. I mean, it's kind of like, it's like learning a dance for me. I kind of throw, I think most people know that I throw myself into the physical aspects of playing Maze sort of wholeheartedly. And I think it's a big part of, I love to see female characters who are as physical as Maze, where you really believe like they could snap your neck. I think when you physically don't look like that, like you could do it, it makes it really hard. Or if you can see who is doing the stunt versus the actor, like I like to do as much as I can so that people never know when it's me or a stunt double.
Yeah, and I mean, it comes off that way. You absolutely kill it, and you really do hit also that fine line you're talking about, humanity and demon, and that's why I think it's so great that you bring this to the role. And I think what people also love about you playing Maze is that you do that thing where you show passion for the show, especially on social media, and I really appreciate and love you been sharing these pictures of these awesome costumes for Maze. Is that more of a collaborative effort than people realize between actor and costume designer? Because like I think some people just imagine costume designer shows up to set, gives you your outfit, you put it on. Like, can you explain how that kind of process works for you on the show?
It really depends on the actor as to how involved they want to be. I can't speak for anyone other than myself. I certainly do think that how she presents herself is a big part of how she is ingested by the audience. And so I wanted her right from the beginning to turn heads when she walked in, even if she didn't have lines necessarily. I wanted her presence to be felt, because I needed her presence to be unique and intimidating at the same time, which played into the danger of the character, and I think that there's real storytelling that can be told through wardrobe and hair and makeup as well. I learned that actually on my very first big US series, Spartacus, where as characters got more darker, their wardrobe got darker, so for Maze, when she's a bounty hunter, there's some more practical like denim and jackets, and when she was in the bar at Lux, there was a lot more corsets and kind of otherworldly, older, like looking items that could have been brought with her from hell. But yeah, I collaborate very closely with Agatha, our costume designer, and with the hair and makeup departments.
I love to hear that, and that's really cool. So you really do everything like 100%, which is awesome. And I also, you mentioned about being on a big series like Spartacus, and then you go on a big series like Lucifer. But did you notice any difference, especially just for yourself and following and people and fans, when it went over to Netflix? Did you kind of sense
Absolutely.
it spike
Well,
up?
yeah, Netflix, I think, is in 167 countries now. So we immediately gained this crazy audience. But then also, lockdown happened and people had time to discover our show. And I think
Right.
we got an entire new wave of eyeballs on the show because of the COVID lockdowns. So that was, I guess, the silver lining, in this really crazy year.
Sure.
And I think the value of entertainment really improved, that we get to take you away from escape, what was happening, and we do it in like a show that's sort of fun and doesn't take itself too seriously, but when it is serious, those themes are really deep and meaningful. But yeah.
Yeah, no, that's great. And that's so true. And I think, like you said, it's something that can help people escape. And this is a kind of perfect show for that. Now, switching gears a bit, you mentioned in your Instagram bio that you're living with a confused accent. Is it still as confusing today? Do you switch between different accents during the day? Where are we right now?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, this one is, it's, I mean, and I say confused, it's like what I've learned to do as an immigrant who, you know, my South African accent is very thick, and it feels weird to sound like this when I'm in South Africa, and it just innately like changes so that I'm with my home sort of people, my town, my country. But a lot of Americans struggled in the beginning, or they confuse where I'm from, and every now and then it's like it sounds Kiwi with a little American and then a lot of South African.
Yeah.
So I don't know, it's this like weird hybrid of my life essentially. It makes sense.
No, yeah, it's cool. It's part of you. It's awesome. And what I love too, I was scrolling down your Twitter and there's a picture you share. If you can just explain to me, you mentioned it as like a Daft Punk type helmet you were wearing in a video on
Yes.
Twitter. What is
Yeah.
that? Where?
It's called the Air Micro, and it's this amazing, like, I went to travel with it because I was like, I am not going to sit on a fucking plane with for 14 hours masked up. And so it has this battery lasts for 12 hours and you can recharge it, and it has a HEPA filter, but it's like literally goes over, it has a fan in there with a HEPA filter.
Oh, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, so you get to, one, people get to see your face, so you know, you're not like, hey, I am really smiling with my eyes, you know. And but then the downside is that it's not a downside, but when you're traveling or rushing to a gate and you're like, can, you know, people recognize you, but that's the thing about the mask, so that is that it does help conceal it a little bit, so that you get to kind of maneuver, you know, in public spaces, because I'm still like, hey, COVID is real, so
Yeah, so
don't come any closer, I'm not being rude.
there's no chance though someone would run into you in a grocery store with that helmet on. Is this just for going on planes?
Hell no, I'm vaccinated.
Oh,
So listen,
okay.
the science goes both ways. You
You're
know,
right. You're right.
you get vaccinated, we can enter the world a little bit easier. But no, I I was really grateful, and they sent it to me. So thank you, Air Micro, for
Hey,
microclimate. Yes.
I love it. So Lesley-Ann, they announced that season 6 will be the final season of Lucifer coming up.
Yeah.
Do you think it's the right time, or do you think there should be more? How do you feel about that?
I think it's the right time. I think, you know, we were never supposed to get a season 6. Season 5 is going to be it, and it's just the show that could. It's like canceled twice, you know, revived twice. It's kind of amazing, but I think really we would, you know, I think our writers had squeezed every bit of story they possibly could for that was good, you know, so that our show could go out on a high, and that we could pay homage to these characters, and respect their individual journeys without it being, you know, cheesy. We've all seen shows that end in a not great way. I
Sure.
really hope that the fans, I think they will be really happy with where we do end the series, and especially for Mazikeen's character, she gets ultimately um, what she ultimately needs, not
Okay.
necessarily what she wants, but ultimately what she needs. And and that made me very happy, to be able to feel like I buttoned, you know, that up. That being said, I always do feel like I mean, people have talked about a spinoff, and I'm like, yeah, there's a lot of Mazikeen's story to tell, but I think not in our world that we created. I think we sort of like said goodbye to her in that world. Yeah.
No, yeah. Look, both those things you said are going to make a lot of people happy as well. That's exciting to hear that she gets a nice button. And then you make a really good point about having it a separate world. But again, thank you so much for joining me, Lesley-Ann. I really appreciate it. Everybody, check out Lucifer 5B. It's out today on Netflix. Go watch it. Enjoy it on your Memorial Day weekend. Also follow Lesley-Ann on Twitter and Instagram at Lesley-Ann Brandt. She has a great social media account that she's got going. Is there anything else you'd like to plug before I let you go, Lesley-Ann?
No, just enjoy the show, you know. I don't know, binge it all at once or let it slow drip, whatever floats your boat.
I love it. Thank you so much, Lesley-Ann, and I hope to talk to you in the future one day.
Thank you so much. Nice to meet you.